The white snowfield, the frozen epicenter of the world, home to beasts that sound like they walked straight out of a nightmare. There's a glacier-gobbling white serpent, someone get that thing a bigger lunch, a gray bear whose footsteps might as well be earthquakes, and a rat with the personality of a toxic waste dump. But, spoiler alert, an ancient emperor who barely escaped alive swears the real threat here isn't the monsters. It's the barbarians themselves. Because who needs terrifying creatures when you have a bunch of headstrong wildlings roaming around? A band of not-so-merry wanderers, a silver-haired, perpetually annoyed protagonist, Greta, bald and built like a boulder, but with the culinary curiosity of a toddler, and a young girl whose innocence is only outmatched by her appetite for dangerous questions. Not far from the biting wind and swirling snow, a brutal fight breaks out. A guy takes down a massive scorpion beast faster than you can say bad decision. Of course, his companion immediately decides witty sarcasm is the best weapon, accusing him of being a typical barbarian who wears ignorance like it's a participation trophy. Our silver-haired hero is this close to dropping the group and calling it a solo mission. If sarcasm were a weapon, this group would need a permit. The silver-haired fellow is just about ready to file for early retirement from party life when the girl pipes up, genuinely confused. Is ignorance something you can eat? Cue the long-suffering sigh. Some things aren't worth explaining to the innocent. If that wasn't enough, the group promptly devours food the silver-haired man warned would kill them. And not just nibbling, more like an all-you-can-eat reckless buffet cleared out in under a week. Somehow they interpret his outrage as a compliment. At that moment, the bald guy, Greta, collapses clutching his gut, which prompts a full-on panic mode, the girl shaking him like a windshield wiper stuck on high. Our protagonist is not amused. His inner thoughts? This was supposed to be my dream adventure. Instead, I got a snowfield survival reality show featuring idiots. Before landing in this snowfield nightmare, our protagonist actually spent his previous life dreaming of magic and adventure. He quit his job, gave up Netflix, and climbed mountains hoping to find portals to another world. Reality never delivered. No magic, no dragons, just routine and disappointment. So every night he prayed for escape. And one day, wonder of wonders, wish granted. Except oops, he's a barbarian in a fridge. A cold, deadly fridge with monsters, fools, and endless existential despair. Mylina, first daughter to a house teetering on the edge of disaster, rides bundled in fur, guarded by mercenaries who clearly regret every life choice that led them here. If frostbite were a person, it'd be their tour guide. Her butler lectures the guards, lectures Mylina, and laments the folly of leaving the city in search of hope. Mylina, though, is all heart. She defends her shivering guards, reminding them, these guys were the only ones crazy enough to volunteer. The butler launches into scary bedtime tales. The emperor who marched in with an army, emerged decades older, raving about monsters, but mainly about those wild barbarians. Rumbling voices from outside signal trouble. A shadow approaches in the blizzard. The captain squints. It's human-shaped and somehow not frozen solid. Good news, it's small. Bad news, it's coming this way. Everyone tenses, hands on hilts. The shadow draws closer. Surprise. It's a barbarian. Introducing Kettle. Kettle's attitude is all cool swagger. He checks out the exhausted party and nonchalantly offers his help. When questioned about trustworthiness, he points out, if I wanted you dead, you wouldn't be asking questions right now, would you? The captain breaks from standard protocol and asks the noblewoman herself, should they hire the walking mountain or fend for themselves? Mylina weighs her options, with desperation as the only other choice is certain doom, and agrees. Kettle's on board, lounging in the carriage like a big cat let in from the cold. The butler is ready to faint every time Kettle moves. Kettle wants one thing in exchange for his protection. Information about the outside world. He's got enough frostbite. He's after knowledge. Conversations drift to how the Empire and the Kingdom are at war, the mysterious magical forces at play, and how third-rate mysticism is apparently not just an insult but a technical term. Sword masters, heroes, and aura users get discussed, with Kettle trying to keep track of the hierarchy like someone staring at an advanced Excel spreadsheet. This is where commentary hits. Kettle's face when he hears heroes can bend fate itself, the fantasy equivalent of reading plot armor in real time. Mylina shares her family's plight, years of trading, sabotaged by jealous rivals, racking up debts until only one chance remains, crossing the snowfield to sell their last weapons at the borders between war-torn countries. Kettle, with a barbarian's directness and a surprising ability to connect the dots, deduces her plan in seconds. Mylina, caught off guard by his insight, wonders quietly what sort of person he really is. The party presses onward, only to be greeted by a black slime that sounds cute but is essentially death made squishy. Mylina recognizes it instantly. Kettle, unfazed, comments, decent snack. Mylina, recoiling, you eat them? Kettle, all honesty, if you ever get curious, do let me know. She does not plan to get curious. When the black slime attacks, Kettle holds back, contractual obligations and all, hero moments cost extra, and lets the mercenaries earn their paychecks. Shields clash, swords glow, someone cheats by using heat magic, and finally the goo monster dies in a glorious splatter. Cheers break out. Kettle looks on, unimpressed. They don't get to rest. A white wolf the size of a small house charges. Mercenaries coordinate, swinging at the throat. One shouts, "See? Snowfield monsters are tough but killable." The captain glares. "You guys better not jinx it." All the while, someone questions Kettle's strength, wondering if he's just a tag-along with a dramatic legend. Kettle, listening in, doesn't bother refuting. When you're basically unkillable, you don't need to brag. Cue the main event as a vicious wind whips up. The ground shakes. The party's morale cracks. A monstrous white serpent approaches, its voice a parody of every villain ever. "Struggle for me, mortals. I find fear delicious." Mylina cries out. Kettle steps forward and delivers a punch that creates a shockwave, rattling the entire blizzard. The serpent writhes, Kettle shrugs. Some creatures only learn through violence. Once the beast is vaporized, the mercenaries, all their doubts obliterated, offer apologies and beg Kettle's forgiveness. He waves them off, he's used to skepticism. Being a walking myth will do that. With monsters at bay for now, Kettle picks up on Mylina's true motivations. She's not just here for business. She wants a shot at leadership to save her family and maybe rise above her station. Kettle, not typically one for deep thoughts, actually respects her guts. She confesses her status as the first daughter of a neglected concubine, a nobody with everything to lose, willing to risk her life for her family. Kettle basically says, "That's smart. The world follows those crazy enough to face danger first." When the edge of the snowfield appears, Mylina hands Kettle a delicate pendant. "If you ever get out, find my family. Show them this." Kettle grins, his new magic key to a future beyond the snow. The group heads out into the green, everyone amazed to be alive. The montage. 5 years of grinding, fighting monsters, doing quests until even grinding loses meaning. Countdown ends. Kettle hits quest 784. The magical door finally opens. He steps into clean air, green grass, and the world he always wanted, the ultimate upgrade from a frozen cell. He marvels at everything. Fresh air? Tastes like winning the lottery. Grass? Actual grass? Not just frozen regrets. But new problems always follow. Kettle, following glowing lights, stumbles upon a magical forest protected by elven barriers. He unknowingly rips through an ancient spell, wondering if the odd sensation is just leftover frostbite. Suddenly he finds a lost elf girl, crying and alone. As he tries to be friendly, she sees the world's scariest hello coming her way and promptly faints. Kettle shrugs, scoops her up and sets off for her village. Elves are supposed to be peaceful. If I bring back their kid, surely I'll get a cookie, or at least not an arrow in the knee. Arriving at the settlement, chaos erupts. Elven mothers cry, barriers shatter, warriors draw bows, and the elderly elves declare, "How did a human even get in here?" Kettle tries to explain, raising his hands like, "Let's all be calm." Cue the magical salvos. Kettle sighs, the hospitality here is a little sharper than expected. The little elf girl slowly blinks awake, her eyes flicking around in confusion, only to see a tall, ash-haired man lowering her gently onto solid ground. It's Kettle, doing his best hero returning lost property impersonation. "Go on now, back to your people," he says, keeping his voice calm. Clearly that was the wrong tactic. The instant she gets a good look at his rugged, battle-worn face, the kind you'd see carved into a wanted poster, her expression melts into pure terror. She unleashes a scream that could shatter stained glass, bursts into tears, and sprints toward her mother like she's going for Olympic gold in the get-me-out-of-here dash. Kettle is left frozen, blinking in sheer bewilderment. Is my face really that bad? I always thought I was doing okay in the looks department. Trying to salvage the situation, he announces to anyone listening, "I've brought the child back. I'm not your enemy." Unfortunately, the elder clearly skipped "hear the guy out" day in leader school and instead bellows the order for everyone to attack. Dozens of elves instantly spring into action, bows drawn. Magical arrows streak through the air, glowing with lethal enchantments. Kettle just stands there, unfazed, as they bounce off his body like he's wearing an anti-magic wetsuit. Wow, and here I thought elves were all about meadow strolls and campfire ballads. These guys? They're basically medieval special forces. As arrows rain down, he starts piecing it together. Of course they're like this. If you've lived out here, survival isn't about peace and harmony, it's about being the toughest thing in the woods. And right now they've decided he's the thing to test that on. The archers, confused that nothing's working, huddle up with a brilliant theory. He must have some epic artifact protecting him. And like true gamers, their strategy is, keep attacking until somebody wins. Kettle tries the diplomatic approach one last time, raising both hands. "Please calm down." But when that fails, he sighs and goes with plan B. One mighty clap of his hands, boom. A shockwave ripples through the entire forest, blasting the silence apart. Elves are nearly blown off their feet, stumbling like leaves in a hurricane. The magic barrier cloaking their village? Shattered, splintering into visible cracks of arcane light. Kettle winces. Right, forgot to keep the strength dial under natural disaster again. Before anyone can react, a new arrow, fiery and shaped like a bird, slashes through the sky and detonates in a thunderous explosion near him. As the smoke clears, the air stills. Standing high on a rocky outcrop is a woman radiating power. Marcellia Hussein Kuja, queen of the Leaf clan and a bona fide elven hero. The entire crowd falls silent. Gandalf could walk in and even he would have been like, "Yeah, I'll wait." She fixes Kettle with a hard stare and demands to know what's going on. The elder wastes no time pointing at him. Human attacker. Marcellia's eyes narrow. If that's true, even here we are no longer safe. Kettle brushes stray embers off his sleeve. All I'm asking for is a minute. Just hear me out. She stares in disbelief. After all, her magical strike barely singed him. The elder mutters in shock that he's still standing. Marcellia's expression curdles as she demands to know why someone so strong would target them, then spits her confession, "I despise humans." Kettle starts wondering if they can't hear him or if they just don't care. Either way, the vibe is clear. This conversation is going nowhere. And like any seasoned survivor of the snow plains, he knows one cold truth. People only start listening after you knock them down. Marcellia launches her next move, water magic. A towering wave roars toward him. Kettle doesn't dodge. He steps into it, cocks his fist and smashes straight through the spell, sending the backlash toward her. He winces immediately. Yep, forgot to hold back again. The blast flattens her, leaving her wide-eyed on the ground. Realizing brute force isn't working, Marcellia summons her trump card. Chanting, a red aura flares in her palms until a blazing shape forms in the air, a massive flaming bull with molten horns. Figo, a high-tier fire spirit. Kettle lights up like he's just spotted his favorite celebrity. An actual summon. Finally, something straight out of my fantasy dreams, not just another ice monster with bad skin. Figo isn't nearly as thrilled. Side-eyeing Kettle, the spirit mutters, "That's the enemy? Is he even human?" Marcellia orders him to attack. With a sigh, the bull charges, hooves tearing up the ground wreathed in fire. The impact is cataclysmic. When the smoke clears, Figo's eyes widen. Kettle is still there, completely unfazed, hands locked around the bull's horns. He grins. Beast form? Perfect. Means I don't have to be gentle. One colossal punch later, the ground craters like shattered glass. The force tunnels through Figo and rips into the forest beyond. Shockwaves radiate outward, debris flying. Marcellia drops to her knees as her fire spirit vanishes back to its realm. Kettle steps toward her slowly. "I'm not your enemy." This time, something in his tone lands. Marcellia blinks, confusion breaking through her anger, and finally listens. Once he explains himself, she realizes they've made a huge mistake, attacking the guy who just returned their child. She bows her head, apologizing for her reckless judgment. Kettle says it's fine, they were protecting their own. Would have been nice if someone let me explain that before the boss fight. She offers to make amends and Kettle's curiosity zeroes in on one thing, spirit contracts. She explains it's rare for humans, almost impossible, except maybe in El Pasrado, the elves' most sacred land. Normally forbidden, but with her introduction? Maybe possible. She warns him to keep this quiet. To elves, this place is beyond sacred. As a token of faith, she gives him a small item and a warning. If he gets close, their god may test him. With her formal introduction done, she asks his name. Kettle. "Just a barbarian," he replies plainly. Later, Kettle is seen thundering through the forest toward his new goal. Each step rattles the ground. In a nearby border city, guards hear the distant boom 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 and scramble to prepare for whatever monster is headed their way. The noise stops. From the trees emerges Kettle, smiling like he's on a friendly neighborhood stroll. "Hello. You guys the guards? Nice to meet you." They just gape, recognizing the ash-gray hair and scar. Someone whispers, "The Ashen Barbarian, he's real?" The border guards stiffen as Kettle approaches, looking like he just strolled straight out of a strongest man in fantasy contest. Someone shouts, ordering him to halt. "One more step and we'll shoot." Kettle, entirely unbothered, raises his hands like a man trying to calm a skittish horse. "Relax. I'm not here to cause trouble." They squint suspiciously. "What do you want then?" Kettle casually points beyond their wall. "Just here for a short visit. See the sights. Maybe stay a few nights. Not sure yet, depends how the food is." Inside the fortress, he's promptly escorted to the guard captain, a grizzled man with a kind of stare that could kill weeds. The captain asks for his name. "Kettle," he replies simply. "Proof of identity?" the captain demands. Kettle pauses, then remembers something, digs into his kit and produces a pendant. "Will this do?" "Got it from someone important." The captain examines it, turning it over in his hand. Crest of House Akasha. Merchant family out of the Damian kingdom. Doing well lately, especially since a new leader took over. "So, That confirms me? Kettle asks hopefully. Not exactly, the captain smirks. But it's legitimate enough to help your case. You can enter, with conditions. When your passport works, but they still make you do chores. The catch? The conditions turn out to be a kind of trial by survival. Several other unverified individuals want to come in too, so the guards are grouping them together, sending them into a nearby dungeon, and making them report everything that happens inside. Translation: watch each other like hawks and see who snaps first. Kettle chuckles. That's a clever way to test people. Don't even have to waste your own men. The captain arches an eyebrow. Are you really a barbarian? Yeah, Kettle nods. Contrary to popular belief, some of us can think and speak at the same time. You'll be the first barbarian to set foot in this domain, the captain replies, ending the conversation with a sharp, move out. Meet the dream team. In the staging room, a gruff, armored older man is already complaining. Even if the law requires it, dungeon crawling with thieves is intolerable. He introduces himself as Aleandro Tyrannis, a paladin, heavy emphasis on the last name. The rogue lounging nearby, Sinhark, snorts. Still mad about the last thief who conned you, huh? You really hold a grudge. The two are instantly in each other's faces, Aleandro's hand going to his sword. Sin grins nastily. For a paladin, you dress like you woke up in an alley, and then laughs at his surname for good measure. Aleandro's scowl could curdle milk. A cleric standing off to the side finally cuts in, sighing hard enough to move the curtains. Can we not kill each other before the dungeon? I'm Hayes. I serve Calathea, the god of lies and deceit. She shrugs. Yes, people tend to side-eye me for it. She points out that the minimum party size is 4. The last member should be arriving any second. The door swings open, and inducts Kettle, every inch of the big scary barbarian they were not expecting. The room goes dead quiet. Even Aleandro shuts up mid-insult. Hey, Kettle smiles warmly, somehow making it more intimidating. You guys my teammates? Names and surprises. They take turns introducing themselves. Sin, thief. Said like he's daring someone to object. Aleandro, paladin. Kettle asks about holy magic. Aleandro sheepishly admits he can't use it. Hayes, cleric of Calathea. Kettle, curious, asks if that's why no one trusts her. She smiles thinly and says yes. The guard captain shows up again. Ready? Kettle, absolutely. The rest? Let's just say their body language screams nope, but no one dares say it aloud. First descent, and first victim. The captain explains the mission, a 3-floor dungeon crawling with undead. Clear it, bring back proof, job's done. Sin lays out the plan. He and Aleandro take the front line, Sin scouts for traps, Hayes supports in the back. Kettle nods cheerfully, simple enough. They start into the dim stone corridors. The air is stale, shadows wobble at torchlight's edge. Hayes mutters, too quiet. Sin agrees it's too normal. Suspiciously normal. He suddenly raises a hand, stop. Monsters ahead. Look, bone fragments. Arranged like this? They're dormant skeletons. Get close and they're up. He glances around grimly. Yeah, the captain knew. This isn't just a trust test, it's a cleanup job to get rid of unwanted people. Kettle brightens. Never fought a skeleton before. They're tougher than they look, Sin warns. High defense, keep moving even with broken parts, you take them out by destroying the neck. Usually takes multiple solid hits. Kettle, got it? Break the neck. Understood. Sin, right, and try not to. Too late. First skeleton rises, mana bones clacking together, eyes glowing. It charges. Kettle steps in, and slaps it so hard it explodes into dust on the spot. Everyone freezes. Guess if you really remove the head in one move they stop moving, Kettle remarks innocently. Sin's brain, that's not what I meant at all. Can I fight them alone? The group's still recovering from shockwave slap when more skeletons start forming. Ace goes pale. But Kettle raises a hand. Let me handle these alone. Got something I want to try. They reluctantly agree and watch as he picks up a discarded skeleton sword, studying it like a museum piece. The first lunge comes, he catches the sword between 2 fingers and snaps it clean in half. So, what now? He grins, genuinely curious. The skeleton obliges with some improvisation, switching the broken sword to its left hand, attacking from the wall with a reverse grip. Kettle is overjoyed. It switches hands? That's clever. Moments later he's ripped off its left arm, then its right, then reduced it to a torso and finally cranes down to nudge its skull off like tapping a light switch. Ace looks horrified. Aleandro and Sin exchange the look of people realizing their new teammate may be too good at this. Finally Kettle stomps the skull into powder, chuckling. Fun fight. Thanks for waiting, everyone. They are all silently, please never turn that on us. Lore break. They rest at the stairwell to floor 2. The atmosphere is thick enough to cut with a knife. Kettle, cross-legged, decides it's the perfect time for questions about dungeons. Hayes explains their natural phenomena, They spawn monsters and treasure but rarely spill outside their borders. Sin adds they can take any form: towers, caves, ruins. Lords decide if they're dangerous enough to clear. Kettle listens, then says something that makes them all go quiet. Strange how they always pop up near towns filled with loot and enemies. Almost like someone wants people to go in. It's the kind of thought none of them, all lifelong adventurers, had ever bothered to think. And now, they're wondering if the barbarian might be the smartest in the room. The treasure chest situation. On floor 2 they spot a large ornate treasure chest sitting out in the open. Sin says it's top-tier loot but needs a master rogue to open, which obviously they do not have. Kettle just points at him. You're the rogue. Go open it. Sin freezes. In his head, buddy, if I could open that, I wouldn't be stuck in low-rank dungeons with you. But Kettle's looking at him with childlike excitement, so instead of admitting the truth, Sin laughs nervously and kneels down, sweating bullets. In his mind, if I fail, I'm either disappointing him, or eating a skeleton slap to the face. Kettle watches like a fascinated tourist. The process is interesting, he comments as Sin mentally cycles through every crime-adjacent memory from his career as a porter for actual thieves. He whispers to himself, this is life or death. It depends on this lockpick, as his trembling hands start to work. When the chest lock clicked open, Sin froze, jaw slack. It had actually worked. For a split second, the man looked like he just unlocked the meaning of life. He muttered under his breath that maybe, just maybe, Kettle wasn't so bad after all. Hayes was wide-eyed, saying she'd only heard of masterclass rogues pulling that off. Kettle, ever the cheerleader, praised Sin sincerely. Sin mumbled something about it being basically impossible, and immediately spiraled into an identity crisis. For the first time he wondered if he'd been living to his full potential, or just surviving on autopilot all these years. Kettle broke his mini-existential moment with a practical question. How much is it worth? Hayes estimated enough to keep a regular family comfortable for a month, or let them live like nobles for a week. Kettle laughed loud at that and told Sin to keep charge of the spoils. Sin obediently lifted the chest like it was a holy relic. But when Kettle suddenly called his name, he yelped like a guilty teenager and almost dropped it. Want me to help carry that? Kettle asked. Sin insisted he was fine, though his nerves were another story. As they pressed deeper into the dungeon, Sin was now basically a loot mule staggering under his prize. Kettle suddenly told everyone to hold. There were more skeletons ahead. 4 of them. Calm as can be, he said he'd take 3. The last one? For the others. Sin instantly knew this wasn't a gift, it was a test. Aleandro tightened his grip on his shield and Hayes started a prep chant. Kettle's 3 targets began to rise, bone by bone, while Sin whispered that watching skeletons self-assemble would never stop being creepy. Hayes cast a shimmering blessing over the team, the golden aura wrapping them like armor. Go, Kettle ordered. Sin lunged first, his blade cutting straight at the neck, but it wasn't enough. The skeleton barely flinched and its buddies closed in. Kettle pulled those 3 back by the collars like misbehaving pets. Those are mine. You focus on yours. No arguing with that tone. Their lone skeleton swung downward. Aleandro caught the blow on his shield, keeping it pinned. Sin used the opening, parkouring off a wall to drive his dagger in from behind. Hayes cast Shadow of Confusion, disorienting the creature, then refreshed Aleandro's buff. He roared and drove his blade at the neck. A sharp crack formed but the thing still stood, chuckling in hollow tones. Kettle watched with amusement, his own trio already shattered into piles of bone dust, as the final skeleton floundered. This, he said, is actually fun to watch. And with the big threats gone, the 3 party members went full aggressive mode, swarming it like cornered wolves. Whether it was fear of dying or fear of disappointing Kettle, they didn't stop until the skull was smashed to bits. All 3 collapsed to one knee, gasping. Guess the ones who traveled with Mylina really were tough, Kettle mused. 3rd floor, more skeletons, but with Kettle leading they shredded through without much effort. Finally they stepped into a grand chamber. On the throne sat a skeleton in full armor, a skeleton knight. Hayes nearly choked. Elite undead. Sword, shield, strength of a knight or better. For us, this is suicide. Kettle tilted his head. And what happens if we run? Hayes explained they could still report in and be fine. Kettle just smiled. Nah, killing it sounds better. The knight rose, aura crackling. Dropping into a low stance, it wound up a sweeping attack. Hayes screamed a warning, throwing up a magic barrier. It shattered instantly under the blow. Aleandro hurled himself in front, shield first, and absorbed the hit before crumpling to the floor. Can we even fight something like that? He gasped. The knight locked onto Kettle. Bad idea. Kettle stepped forward, met its charge head-on, and with one casual punch to the chest, turned the monster into airborne bone powder. The torso evaporated, the remains collapsing into ash. Kettle took in the stunned faces of his allies. That's it? Really? And there, behind the throne, another treasure chest. Sin, Kettle called. Sin already felt the dread. Can you open it? Sin shook his head violently, the lock was far above his level. Shame, Kettle said. He let Sin get halfway into explaining they'd have to leave it before casually punching the entire thing into splinters. Clang loot everywhere. No one even reacted anymore. Kettle simply said, much easier this way. Sin, bag it up. Sin obeyed, still wondering, if he could just break it, why'd he have me pick the last one? At the exit, a bright light enveloped them, a low rumble in the wake. The dungeon crumbled behind. Sin explained, clear a dungeon completely and it dissolves. No secret rooms in this one. Kettle grinned. Secret rooms? Those sound fun. Sin, who enjoys this stuff? The guard captain stared when they returned so soon. Already? No way, he asked how it went. Kettle, pretty satisfying. Any issues? Hayes, no, nothing major. Hesitation in her voice. The captain knew the test was about more than survival, it was about character. Sin vouched for Kettle, saying he wasn't bad. The captain agreed. A barbarian strong enough to one-shot a skeleton knight, yet never putting his party at risk? Not exactly the savage stereotype. Kettle praised Sin for his traps and lock-picking, Alejandro's steadfast defense and Hayes' blessings. The captain was surprised. Usually these teams came back blaming each other. Here the barbarian was sharing credit. He paid them in full without skimming, something unheard of, and Kettle insisted the split be fair. No arguments allowed. Then, big grin, he invited everyone to celebrate with drinks. They trudged off, Kettle still buzzing with energy, the others walking like survivors of a disaster movie. Watching them go, the captain muttered, one-shotting a skeleton knight? He's no ordinary barbarian. Turning to his men, he ordered, I need to tell the Lord about this. Moments later, he was at Lord Luke Varkin's estate to deliver the news. A barbarian had entered the territory. In his study, Lord Luke listened as the guard captain gave his report. Permission to enter the territory? Granted. Threat level? Apparently none. So Luke asked the natural follow-up, then what's the issue? The captain's answer came flat and simple. He's too strong. Luke tilted his head, curious. How strong are we talking? Captain, dropped a skeleton knight in one hit. That stopped Luke cold. Skeleton knights aren't your everyday undead, they're the kind soldiers tell scary stories about to rookies. So he's at least first-rate warrior level? The captain nodded. Very possible. Luke sighed, rubbing his temples. A barbarian that strong is a walking headache. Solution? See him for himself. Summon him immediately, Luke ordered. The captain hesitated. Translation. Are we sure poking this bear is wise? Luke waved that off, saying an unsupervised powerhouse wandering around was a risk in itself. He'd rest easier after sizing him up. The captain still voiced the danger, until Luke gestured to the corner. My knight is here. Only then did the captain notice the quiet, sharp-eyed figure in the room. When asked for his opinion of this barbarian, the knight's voice was ice. Raw strength perhaps, but still just a barbarian. No refinement, no real skill. Against my master-pass swordsmanship, he'd crumble. Luke gave a small nod and repeated the order, bring him to me. Meanwhile in the pub, Kettle was in a heated battle of his own, against the pub menu. Empty plates, half-finished mugs and crumbs littered the table. The wood itself groaned under the weight. He chewed with the enthusiasm of a man who's just discovered flavor exists, while his three companions watched with the horrified fascination of people witnessing a natural disaster. He slammed down his ale like a victory bell. Food's amazing. Perfect atmosphere too. Remember, it's my treat. Eat all you want. The others chuckled awkwardly and didn't make eye contact. Turning to Alejandro, Kettle asked, so you really are a paladin? Alejandro confirmed, only to admit, a bit embarrassed, that he hadn't yet awakened his holy powers. Kettle pouted. Shame. I was hoping for the whole divine miracle showcase. Then he looked to Hayes. Your god, any temples around here? The cleric tensed. Hers was the god of lies and deceit, a name that gets you side-eyed in most places. No temple here would take me in. After a moment, Hayes lobbed the question everyone wanted to know. Just how strong are you? Sin and Alejandro leaned in. Kettle just shrugged. No idea. Only just left home, hard to compare. But he was curious, how strong was that skeleton knight? The answer came quick. It takes at least a second-rate fighter to beat one. Doing it in one blow puts you firmly in first-rate territory. Kettle blinked. That's first-rate? Huh. A nervous waiter shuffled over, it was closing time. Kettle stood, asked if anyone wanted to hang out after. In perfect harmony, all three said they were far too busy. They weren't busy, they were making escape plans. Kettle just said, shame. Hope we meet again. They did not. Finally, a real bed. Later, Kettle checked into a modest inn and collapsed onto the bed with a satisfied sigh. First real bed since arriving in this world, the dungeon reward had paid for it easily. Compared to the freezing wastelands he came from, this felt like a five-star resort. He thought about that journey, about finally reaching civilization, and began dreaming bigger. Sacred land of the elves. Royal capital. Climb a magic tower because why not? This was the kind of quest list he'd imagined back home. Just thinking about it made him grin. The knock at the door. Morning sunlight spilled in. Kettle wiped the drool from his cheek, stretched, and was just getting up when there was a knock. Outside stood the first guard captain, polite but firm. Apologies for waking you, but the Lord would like to see you. In person. And when a lord invites you, that's less of an invite and more of a, you don't really get to say no. When the guard captain told Kettle the lord of the territory wanted to meet him, Kettle just blinked. A noble wants to meet me? That's new. I'm in. No hesitation, no nerves, just cheerful agreement. He even asked if they were leaving right now so he could get dressed. The captain was still trying to process how this guy was the same man who could one-shot a dungeon boss. As they walked through the city, Kettle looked around like a tourist on his first vacation. Last night, it had been all dark alleys and quiet streets, but in the daylight? Bustling, colorful, alive. It's just like a game, he grinned, pointing at stalls and buildings like everything was brand new. The captain, who had a job to do, decided enough sightseeing was enough. Shortcut. Translation: please stop getting distracted by pottery stands. First impressions in the Lord's Hall. They reached the Grand Castle. The captain announced, "The Barbarian's here." The doors opened and Lord Luke stepped forward, hand extended in greeting. He introduced himself with full noble formality. Kettle shook the hand, bowed, and introduced himself simply, "I am the Barbarian Kettle." This was Luke's first shock. Barbarians don't bow. Barbarians barely nod. Respect isn't usually in the skill set. Luke invited him to sit. Kettle's eyes wandered over the tapestries, gold trim and polished floors. This is incredible. I've always wanted to see inside a castle like this. His gaze fell on the knight at Luke's side. His face lit up. I used to play night games as a kid. Seeing one in real life is like a dream. The knight did not take it that way. He thought, that's not admiration. That's murder in the eyes. And in his head, he'd already decided Kettle wasn't walking out alive. Luke's questions. Luke explained the purpose of the meeting. He simply had questions before letting Kettle go on his way. First, where are you from? Kettle's answer, the coldest place in the world. Endless white. Luke and the knight exchanged a look. They knew what that meant, the white snowfield. But if true, then this man was the barbarian of legend. Luke admitted it was hard to believe. Kettle shrugged, believe it or don't, doesn't change how miserable it is there. Luke moved on, then how strong are you really? Kettle smiled. That's the wrong question. I don't even know, not here anyway. Luke looked to his knight, the silent exchange was clear. He offered Kettle a sparring match against his knight, generous reward, no killing, just a test. Most people in Kettle's position would be nervous. But Kettle? His grin stretched ear to ear. This wasn't just a duel. This was a knight, a real aura-wielding knight from a fantasy kingdom. Exactly the kind of thing he dreamed of seeing. This man wasn't thinking about the danger. He was thinking, oh, live-action skill demo. Luke, however, felt a pit in his stomach. Barbarians always love to fight. He prayed no one lost a head over this. The Colosseum clash. In the Colosseum, Kettle and the knight prepared to face off. Luke muttered from the stands, let's hope there's no blood today. The signal was given. The knight, radiating green aura, charged. Consider it an honor to witness my blade, he declared. Kettle, unfazed, oh, I'm excited. With a single motion, the knight's sword split into 3 spectral blades, all aimed at Kettle's head. Kettle dodged with ease. Yep, 3 blades. All real. Interesting trick, so this is swordsmanship? He mused aloud. The knight sneered. Kettle was dodging sure but not countering. Another charge. Big mistake. In one smooth move, Kettle flicked a single finger, and the knight's blade shattered. Before the knight could recover, Kettle placed a hand on his chest, clenched his fist, and crumpled the man's armor like it was tin foil. One throw later, the knight slammed into a wall hard enough to leave a crater. Luke's eyes were wide. His best knight dismantled in seconds. The floor was cracked, the wall damaged, and the barbarian was politely asking if the match was over. Aftermath entered Kane. Luke barely found his voice to say, yes. Inside though? Full panic. No normal man could do that with such control. And this wasn't even full power. If it was left unchecked, someone this strong could tip the balance of the whole world. He decided this needed a second opinion, from Kane, a true sword master. As if on cue, Kane's voice came from the window, talking about me? Luke sighed. Kane still hadn't learned the concept of doors. The old man grinned, gotta keep life interesting. Soon after, in the infirmary, the knight was awake, gear destroyed but body miraculously unharmed. Kane inspected him, surprised. No bruises, no broken bones, meaning Kettle had been holding back. That, Kane explained, was scarier than the raw strength itself. Kane's verdict, he's beyond a knight. At least superhuman. Luke swallowed hard and asked, sheepishly, how that compared to Kane himself. Kane smirked. He's strong but I'm a sword master. Strength alone isn't enough to surpass me. Then, almost as an afterthought, and by the way, he wasn't even using aura. Translation: that fight was Kettle running on low power mode. Kane suspected now beyond doubt, Kettle wasn't just a strong warrior, he might really be the barbarian of legend from the snowfield. But if he truly was a monster, why had he shown mercy? Interesting. And worth finding out. Kane left the room with one last line: is he still in the city? Good. I'd like to meet him myself. After parting ways with Lord Luke, Kettle sat with the first captain, who leaned in like he was about to deliver life advice. So, what's your next move? Kettle shrugged. No idea. Dungeon boss punching is fun, but I could use some variety. The captain laid out the options. Get a sponsor, a high-status person co-signs your existence. Become a mercenary, join the roaming adventurer crowd, start at the bottom. Kettle's eyes lit up. Mercenary? Like the cool kind from games? Captain? A more like monster exterminator / errand runner until you rank up. Translation: delivering groceries while occasionally stabbing rats. The captain even shared he used to be one himself, then admitted, with your strength, the sponsor route is easier. But Kettle's brain was already halfway to a fantasy montage of taverns, swords and dramatic sunsets. Mercenary Guild reality check. The captain agreed to take him to the guild, but gave a disclaimer. Mercs roam the world doing quests big and small. Newbies are bottom feeders, disposable muscle errand fetchers. The lower ranks? Filthy, loud, full of people who treat brawling as cardio. Think less, Knights of the Round Table, and more roughest pub in Skyrim. Right on cue they stepped inside, just as some guy took a haymaker to the face and hit the floor like a dropped sack of potatoes. He bounced up grinning. Round 2. Bring it on. The crowd, already placing bets. Behind the counter, receptionist Rosa wore the glazed stare of someone who's done this job too long. A coworker asked how the new recruits were shaping up. Rosa: horrible. Lunatic, paladin, shady rogues, suspicious none. Honestly, this feels like a casting call for a jail, not an adventuring party. She sighed, joking she wished a handsome prince would come whisk her away from the chaos. Door slams open. Her eyes lit up hopefully, and in walked Kettle. Instant silence. All eyes turned. Whispers: is that a barbarian? In our guild? Kettle grinned like he'd just found Disneyland. This the Mercenary Guild? I'm here to sign up. Paperwork and plot hooks. Rosa, a bit spooked, asked why. Kettle explained mercenary work could help get his status recognized, and it sounded fun. She confirmed it was true but warned it meant starting from nothing, taking dozens of requests before moving up. He didn't flinch. Fee: 5 copper coins. Name: Kettle. Age: I'm not sure. When someone doesn't know how old they are, either they've got amnesia, or the backstory is about to be wild. Form filled. Badge issued. Don't lose this, it's your ID now. Kettle stared at his new badge like a gamer unlocking an ultra-rare skin. Your first epic quest is gardening. He asked about jobs. Rosa corrected him, it's requests, then handed him the beginner list. Herb gathering herb. Cleaning basements broom. Sewer cleaning pile of poo, oh joy. Street patrol person walking. That's right, folks. Barbarian warrior from the frozen hellscape joins a guild to collect plants. Kettle picked herb gathering without hesitation. Rosa was impressed. Most barbarians would have stormed off after being told to do fetch quest work. Flower picking barbarian mode. Armed with a sketch of the herbs, Kettle marched into the forest like he was on a legendary quest, except the legendary monster was botany. These plants are great for treating wounds, but they look kinda weird, he mused, stripping off his shirt like it was going to make him pick faster. Sun's out, guns out, even for farming. Less than an hour later he returned with a full sack of herbs. Rosa's first thought, did this guy nuke the whole field? But nope. Every plant was pristine. Most rookies yanked them up like barbaric lawnmowers, ruining the roots. Kettle beamed, might not look it but I've got a delicate touch. Big payday. Kind of. Rosa paid him 1 silver coin, barely enough to buy the worst meal in the city. Kettle's reaction? Pure joy. First honest coin earned in this world. He immediately asked for another request, eyes shining like a man about to raid a dragon's hoard. The sun was still high, plenty more day to work. Rosa just stared. That's when she knew, yep, this guy's officially in the guild's weirdo column, but maybe, just maybe, the kind they need.